This video is part of the mid-year exam revision program for my English home language students who are studying the South African IEB curriculum. It's good to have you with me as we hit the books and prepare for formal summative assessments. During this time of enforced online learning, it's unlikely that we'll write mid-year exams. No matter, as the format of the assessment is identical at the end of the year. As we enter our 5th week of lockdown lessons, I'd like to remind you that you can make contact with me on any of the pre-arranged platforms. I do look forward to hearing from you. It's getting very lonely without you. This video is specifically for English Home Language, Paper 1, in the IEB curriculum. You will use the 2019 June question paper as your exemplar. You will need to spend 4 hours this week on this revision exercise. In today's lesson, we'll go over the expectations of paper 1 and you'll answer question 1, the reading comprehension. In lesson 2, you'll go over the basics of summary writing before completing the summary question in the provided paper. You'll also complete the 2 poetry questions. In lesson 3, you'll complete questions 5 and 6, the general language questions. The final lesson will be spent marking your answers using the provided marking guidelines. This will be in the format of a document which you can access on Edmodo. In other words, there won't be a video for that lesson. For these lessons, you will need to access the question paper on Edmodo. It consists of 2 documents, the question paper and the insert. If you can print them, that would be great, as you'll be able to highlight keywords and write comments. But this is not essential. As long as you can read the questions on your device, you'll be fine. Of course, you'll need pens, a ruler, highlighters, a pencil, and A4 lined paper from an exam pad. So this is what you'll need: your 2 documents and your stationery. Before we get started with the exam paper, I'd like to point out a few things about the way your question paper is structured. As a teacher at an IEB school, I have to use the English Subject and Assessment Guidelines. We call them our SAGs. In this document are all our instructions for teaching English, including how exam papers should be set. The SAGs document is available to you in a folder on your Edmodo class page. You can look at it at any time. As an examiner, I have to ensure that your question paper is balanced and that there is a good mixture of lower order and higher order thinking skills, HOTS and LOTS. Remembering and understanding information are considered lower order skills, while evaluating and creating are considered higher order skills. Your question papers are roughly divided into 60% LOTS and 40% HOTS. Paper 1 consists of 6 questions, which you must finish within 3 hours. Question 1 is the reading comprehension. Question 2 assesses your summarizing skills. Question 3 and question 4 cover poetry, and question 5 and question 6 assess general language, including textual editing. You can see the mark allocation on the slide. This does not change, which means that you can work out your time allocation per question before you enter the exam room. Before we get into the paper itself, a reminder. Your examiners assume that you have a good general knowledge. They assume that you read newspapers, that you're aware of topical issues and up to date with pop culture. To put it bluntly, you have to know more than what you see on TikTok and Instagram. The world is so much more than South Africa. When this paper was set, the film A Quiet Place was being discussed. If you did not know about any of these talking points and encountered them for the first time in this exam paper, you would be at a disadvantage compared to a classmate who had already thought about the issues and formed an independent opinion about this movie. By now you are used to our daily bell ringer activity, with which we start every lesson. Do you know that some of these activities have a way of finding themselves into your text and exam papers? Mistakes on Monday task could be in question 5 or question 6. A term on Tuesday word could find its way into any question, as could one of the word on Wednesday vocabulary words. A thought on Thursday could be used in a comprehension or summary passage, and a cartoon from the Friday Funny could be in the paper too. So you see, you should make those bell ringers count. The moral of the story is simple. Pay attention in class. It really is to your advantage. Before the exam begins, you are given 10 minutes reading time. Please make good use of it. This is what the paper looks like. Use the reading time to orientate yourself. Part of the 10-minute reading time should be spent reading the instructions. I'm always amazed when I'm invigilating exams and I see the majority of you flipping over page 1 and jumping straight into the questions. Don't do that. One of the instructions that you'll always find on your English papers is to write your name on the question paper. This is so that you get your own paper back when I return the scripts. You should have a section in your Lever Arch file for past papers, which you should use to prepare for all exams. Please spend time preparing your answer script. Write your name, class, the subject, which paper you're writing, and the date next to the left-hand margin. This gives me enough space to write your mark on the right-hand side, to write a comment, and for the moderator to sign your script. Please rule a generous right-hand margin as well. This makes it much easier to keep track of your marks and to eliminate late-night mathematical errors when I calculate your marks. Take care with the presentation of your answer script. It really helps. You know who you are. Well, as Maria sang in The Sound of Music, let's start at the very beginning with question 1. The SAGS document stipulates that question 1 must consist of one or more texts. These texts can come from newspaper articles, adverts, cartoons. They're usually topical, underlining why it's important that you keep up to date with current affairs and pop culture. My advice to you for answering question 1 is the following. Firstly, read the first sentence of every paragraph. Then read the questions. And thirdly, read the whole text, highlighting the information referred to in the questions. Use the mark allocation as your guide to the length of the answers. As a rough guide, use the doubling principle. 2 marks is 4 lines of writing, 4 marks is 8 lines of writing, etc. You're now ready to begin. Spend the rest of today's lesson answering question 1. Always write in blue or black pen. Anything in pencil will be ignored by the markers. For this exercise, I'm asking you to skip 2 lines between each answer. This is so that you have enough space to write corrections and comments when you mark your work. You should now have completed the first of 4 revision lessons. Take note of the time on the video so that you can start at this point for the next lesson. Today we're going to tackle question 2, the dreaded summary question. The SAGS document tells us that you'll have to repurpose a passage. You'll remember the FLAP acronym from class. F, what format you must use. L, what kind of language you must use. A, who is the audience that you're writing for. And P, what is the purpose of the text. It is absolutely crucial that you follow the instructions to question 2 to the letter. On the next slides, you'll be given strategies and advice for writing summaries. Read the instructions carefully. If you are asked to read an article about studying maths and to summarize the advantages of the subject, then that is all you must write. You will not mention the disadvantages of studying maths. Are there any disadvantages, I wonder? You write the information in your own words. This is vital, as you'll be heavily penalized if you simply copy and paste from the original passage. And you should never give your opinion about the content of the passage. You do not include examples, quotes, anecdotal stories, background information, or definitions. So what do? Well, obviously, you read the passage in much the same way that you read the comprehension passage in question 1. Highlight key words or topic sentences. Summarize what you have highlighted by rewriting it in your own words. Unless you are specifically instructed otherwise, you must write in full sentences. Write your draft paragraph, ensuring that your sentences are logical and linked. The use of linking words is important, as is the correct use of punctuation. Count your words. Regard the provided word limit as sacrosanct. You will be penalized if you go over the word limit. Edit your writing. Be ruthless as you do this, and don't rush the process. Do a final word count and indicate the word count in pen at the end of your summary. I cannot stress this enough. The word count must be accurate. Should you lie in your word count, you will be heavily penalized. And yes, I do count the words of every summary. Only include a title if you are specifically instructed to do so. Well, that's it. You are ready to answer question 2. Pause the video here. When you're done, we'll tackle question 3 and question 4. Question 3 and question 4 are the poetry questions. In the IEB curriculum, these appear in paper 1, even though they are part of the literature section of the curriculum. The IEB SAGS document tells us that you must be examined on 2 prescribed poems, which may have a picture or other visual stimulus as part of the question. You'll also be asked to answer questions on a contemporary unseen poem. Good news, I think, to know that you're not going to get an Elizabethan or Renaissance poem in the unseen category. In 2019, my pupils had studied the herb garden and hardydyne class You have not studied these poems, so you'll have to treat all three of them as unseen poetry. A reminder, your literature terminology is needed for the poetry questions. If you can't remember what something means, look it up in the Xcert English Study Guide that you should have at home. Answer question 3 and question 4 on your exam pad paper. That brings us to the end of the second lesson. Take note of the time on the video so that you can start from this point in the third lesson. In this lesson, the third of 4 lessons, we'll deal with the last 2 questions of paper 1. Questions 5 and 6 tend to be a mixed bag of general language questions. 10 of the 25 marks are allocated to editing skills, the correction of errors. The texts are varied and are sourced from a wide variety of places: newspapers, magazines, adverts, cartoons, posters, anywhere. 2019 was an election year in South Africa. The IEB CAT task, the Common Assessment Task, focused on the use of persuasive language techniques. Because of this, I elected to use some campaign posters in the exam. Pupils should have been well prepared to interrogate such posters, referring, of course, to those 3 pillars that uphold rhetoric: pathos, logos, and ethos. Pupils were expected to analyze key features of posters, using their visual literacy skills to make meaning of these campaign tools. Broader issues are often incorporated in exams. A focus on the portrayal of gender in campaign posters is such an example. During the election period, much was made of a politician's criticism of the disparity in wealth in South Africa when he made the point that some citizens are so wealthy that they can afford pet insurance, while others cannot afford medical care for themselves or their families. Another instance of topical issues being referred to in exam papers. This issue of the expense of keeping pets was used to assess whether pupils could analyze adverts, distinguish between fact and opinion, and analyze graphs. Cartoon analysis remains an important component of paper 1. Here you can see how the cartoons reflect some of the issues in the paper: government elections, poverty, even load shedding. The last question in the paper requires you to showcase your knowledge of grammar rules. Here you should be able to correct errors, always being able to give reasons for those corrections, and manipulate language structures as directed in the questions. Well, that's it. You have finished the June 2019 exam paper. In the next lesson, you'll mark your own work using the marking guidelines which are posted on Edmodo. Thank you so much for paying attention and working hard. You will be rewarded. If you have any queries about any of the answers in the marking guidelines, you know how to get hold of me. Goodbye, everyone. Ah, you're my kind of person. I always wait until the very end of the credits before I leave the cinema after watching a movie. As a reward, the first 3 students who contact me via email after watching to the end of this video lesson will receive a prize when we get back to school after the lockdown. You must send me an email with the words "Let it go" in the subject line. I'll announce the names of the first 3 on Edmodo.